Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. My name is Brandon. I'm a lifetime Seminole fan.
And this is Chris and Jared. We are lifetime Gator fans.
We are putting aside those differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Later in the episode, we're going to talk about Florida State winning comfortably at home against Syracuse. UCF has a bye. Miami goes to North Carolina, lose on the road. But we're going to start off with the Gators as always, and they get a road win against South Carolina. So I'll let you kind of take it away, Chris. How did this happen?
Yeah, man, this is one of those games where, last week I was saying this has a blowout written all over it. And it's one of those things I was like, I need Florida to win on the road. A few weeks ago, it's like we need Florida to win a big game in the Swamp. We need Florida to beat someone like Vanderbilt convincingly, right? And so now the next step was beat somebody on the road, anybody on the road. Because going into it, we were 1-7 away from the Swamp. And South Carolina coming off a bye week, they want some revenge. I just thought this was going to be a blowout by South Carolina. But Florida, to my surprise, really stepped up and fought the whole game, got down, and actually made a comeback late in the fourth quarter to beat South Carolina 41-39 there. And I knew, and I said it at the beginning, I said it last week, I said we would know at the end of the first quarter whether we have a chance to win this game or not. Because we've been starting slow, most games, especially on the road. And we came out starting really good. And we were trading punches all game against South Carolina. And we got down third quarter. South Carolina's pulling away early fourth quarter. We're down by 10 with 9 minutes left, and you're just thinking to yourself, and I was thinking this out loud, okay, we fought good, which I liked. I'm like, okay, here we go, moral victory, yada yada. But then the Gators, they pulled it out, and they scored 2 touchdowns, and 40 seconds left. Mertz hits Pearsall at the end of the end zone. Our defense gets a much needed turnover to seal the deal. And Florida squeaks out a win against South Carolina in a thrilling game, a fun game to watch, really, from the start to the finish, unless you're a South Carolina fan. But other than that, it was a real fun game to witness, to be a part of. And it was really cool to see us actually check some boxes off and I think take a huge step, not only in the season, but also as a program, winning a tough game on the road. Especially, and there's a lot of positives of this game. There are some negatives too, which we will get to. But the main thing that really sticks out is Graham Mertz going for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. And we had talked to Jared mentioned Mertz is a good, solid quarterback, but is he going to be the guy that's going to win you a game? And we weren't really sure about that. I think it's safe to say he won us this game. Him and Pearsall, especially, a few other guys as well. But we did it in a way that I didn't think we were going to win. I thought you had to establish the run to win this ball game. We ran okay, but really it was Mertz's arm and his decision-making and Pearsall and him coming up in the second half and the defense making a stop there at the very end. Ways that I didn't think were gonna happen. It actually happened. So it's really cool to see that, to see the growth there on our young team. Mertz really just stepping into that role and not just a game manager, but actually able to win on the road in a hostile environment, stepping up, seeing guys like Wilson kept stepping up. Boardingham, again, continuing that progression to be that next a great tight end that we all think he's going to be. And on the flip side of that, defense wasn't the best. They gave up 37 points. Not really worried about the safety there at the end. So you're really happy with the way we fought, the way we came back. You're happy to see Mertz in the offense, but at the same time, it's bittersweet because the defense I think, took a step back in this game. But I'll take it. A win is a win. We're up to 5 now. A lot of people didn't think we'd get this far. And I'm really excited. I was jumping up and down. My son's literally jumping on my back during the end of the game there. Yeah. Now we're a day removed. I'm kind of like, okay, it was against South Carolina, who's not a good football team, but I'm going to take the dub and run with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Take the dub and run with it. Would definitely be the exact sentiment that I would go with too. I just want to highlight a few things. You mentioned these players, but just some crazy things that have happened in a game where somebody had to step up. You mentioned Graham Mertz, obviously going for 428 and 3 touchdowns is a huge part, and a guy that did step up. But the moments that he stepped up and the way that he stepped up were kind of like the key things for me, and the things that as a Gator fan, I was like, oh man, like we may, if we are able to put something together, we may have a little something here with this. This might be a nice little team. Um, it's fourth down, and I think 4th and 10. And in a play that you had to have, Mertz rolls out. He hits Arliss Boardingham behind the line of scrimmage, breaks the tackle, goes out, moves the sticks, and moves, get you back in the game, and really just in a situation and drive to go and continue to score you back in the game. And that was an absolutely monstrous play. It wouldn't look crazy on the stat sheet there, but I mean, in an effort, he gave the effort that he had to give to get the job that he had to have done. Because if you don't get that first down, dude, are we talking about a comeback victory here? In so many situations like that, Mertz hits Pearsall there, right, on like the deep out or maybe the corner route. It goes off his hands and right into the hands of Eugene Wilson, who was able to take it, for like 20 plus yards for another huge Gator first down. And when that play happened, I think I texted the group chat with Chris and Austin. I was like, man, like, I don't think I said this, but in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, there's no way we're losing this game. Just things were so many happen that were kind of a better lucky than good scenario. And so, Wilson comes out, has a huge day, making huge plays. Boardingham come out, making huge plays. Obviously, Pearsall with a touchdown. And it was just like in every moment where you had to go out and make a play, someone did. And that was kind of the things that I like to see. You mentioned the defense struggling. I think that's fair to say. Jalen Kimber and Jason Marshall continue to be a not very dynamic cornerback duo. Jason Marshall, for sure, he struggled a lot. And Kimber, we've seen flashes of him play well. But, in the context of this game, credit South Carolina, credit Spencer Rattler and that phenomenal wide receiver they have in Harbor, I believe is his name. They played a great game, and he made some plays too. But I think those are plays you got to make, right? I mean, you have to be able to come down with a 50-50 ball, at least bat it away. I thought Shamar James actually played pretty well in some stops right there. Obviously, it's some coverage busts and some things you don't want to see. But when it came to putting a hat on a hat in a one-on-one situation, he had a big stop on Rattler there, like on a run that kept him from converting there at the end. So I thought that was pretty good. The defensive line continues to be up and down. As the game wore on, you saw Princely, Manley Meelan finally start to make an impact. Caleb Banks made a little bit of impact there at the end, and even Cam Banks. But again, a couple crucial penalties that could have cost us in the past half. And I think that's all in all, like Chris said, South Carolina's not very good, but you went out and got a win that you haven't been able to get, and no one's going to fault you for that.
Yeah, and that fourth quarter, like everything that needed to go right did go right. We converted 3 fourth downs. Jared mentioned that tip pass to Wilson. Boardingham made a great. I mean, when he threw that, I was like, why would you throw that? But he's trusting his players. He's trusting, like, okay, and to trust a redshirt freshman tight end is saying something. But he makes that guy miss effortlessly too. When we threw a deep pass, I think it was 4th 11 to Pearsall. He just out jumped his guy to get it. The touchdown pass to Boardingham, where he tips it up. It could have tipped it back to an interception or just dropped it, but he tips it back to himself and catches it just in time to get inside the end zone. Little things like that were just kind of like, okay, it's going right for us. It's definitely going right for us. And it was a really good feeling when you just had a couple of years where nothing is going right for you. You don't get those tips. You don't get these calls here and there. And it just finally came to a crescendo, if you will, where everything is like, yes, this is going right, this is going right, this is going right, and he finally caps it off with a touchdown there. And how about Billy? We criticized his play call. Three things that really stuck out for me. His management at the end of the second quarter to get that field goal. That is something that has drove Gator fans wild for years. His mismanagement of the clock and time, specifically at the end of the half, has just been frustrating. But he managed it well. That 4th down toss sweep to ETN at the goal line, near the goal line there, I think it was a beautiful play. I did not see that coming because typically you would have just run it straight up. But like, no, you have our speed running back. Let's get him on the outside. And then at the very end, kneeling the ball 3 times, and even taking that safety. Like, hey, I'm going to do everything we can not to just fumble this away. So I mean, I'm very critical sometimes of his play calling and his management, but I got to give him credit. Like when it mattered, he hit it right for this game. So and it really helped us to get over the edge and actually pull this victory out.
And I'll put on my optimistic cap kind of with my final thoughts on it. But, one thing that I noticed is that as you continue with the youth movement, one of the positives I took away was you left a lot of things on the field with some of those young guys. As phenomenal of a day as Eugene Wilson had or Trey Wilson had there, and he did, great game, right? There were so many instances where just some inexperience and kind of could have really capped that off, because there were 2 or 3 times where if he comes back for a ball, he gets a 15-yard flag easily, right? So you just saw kind of like the freshman mindset there of like, man, when this guy, he looks good right now, but when he figures it out, he's going to be, pretty. And even though Castell had a bit of a rough day, there was a lot of times where he was in some pretty solid position there. And I think as he continues to work with that, I think you're going to continue to see a guy that's going to be able to play at a high level. And so the youth movement, I think it's still in good shape. Another guy that flashed to me on during the game was TJ Searcy. Our defensive line did struggle to stop the run, but Searcy was a guy who I thought played a pretty good game with all things considered. Obviously, you gave up a lot of yards, you gave a lot of points, but I thought he was a guy that continued to show that he has a foundation that he might be really good down the line and as he continues to develop. So just some positives I'll take away from it. It's weird to say, like, oh, I'll take some positives away from this win. But from a defensive standpoint, I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, the defense, I mean, the secondary, it showed our youth. I mean, we knew these games were going to happen, where they just got beat the one-on-one. They're out of coverage. We weren't getting consistent pressure. As the game went on, we did get better at pressure. But also with that, we lost contain a lot, and that was very frustrating. So, I mean, credit to Rattler, though. He's a pretty good quarterback, especially arms and legs. But so it was very frustrating to see our defense give up that many points after they had overall been, outside the Kentucky game, really solid. And against us, I mean, South Carolina is not good at rushing the ball. They were really bad going into this game, and they ran for 150. So that's kind of concerning a little bit. But to do all that and still pull out a win despite having because like last year before that, if our defense gives up nearly 40 points, we're not winning the game. But they made enough plays. They had that huge interception at the very end, and we actually had an offense that was complementary to it. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but I'll take it. And you definitely see that there is some potential there with our youth going forward.
Yep, and if I may, I just wanted to say this was an interesting game from my perspective to see Smack kind of come out. He made 4 of his 5 field goals, and he was jazzed after that 54-yarder, right? So good to see the special teams was acting there. Just a quick question for the two of you, because this was really the first game, in my opinion, that the passing game was really what won it. And you saw, Mertz had to throw it a lot more than he's used to doing it, so his efficiency went down, which I think we'll all sacrifice for the cause. But do you think Florida has found a new identity, or do you think this was kind of a we can pick on their secondary kind of game? What are y'all's thoughts on like running versus passing the ball moving forward?
I think it shows that we have the ability to be more balanced than anyone thought that we would be able to be. If you remember, Mertz was not thought of as a guy that was going to be able to consistently hit anything deep or really just kind of be able to be relied on. And I even said that last week. I was like, that's not a guy you can run and win a game. So I think it shows that Florida can be more balanced. I think the identity still is preferably run, though, Chris, right? I mean, is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, South Carolina's biggest weakness on defense is their passing game. So we just exploited that. But I think we're more comfortable running. I think we're built with the running backs that we have. But I do like that we have, like, if we need to win, we have a better chance. I mean, if we need to win passing, now we have a better chance And I think we were talking like to complement the passing game and running game is Billy Napier wants to use those tight ends. We're just looking for A, healthy tight ends, and B, competent tight ends. And now we're starting to find them with Boardingham and even Hansen as well. So we're still struggling to find our true identity. I think we still want to run the ball. I think that's Napier's thing is he still wants to run the ball. But it's nice to know that if we're forced to pass, we have a shot now.
Okay.
And the other thing I would say too, Brandon, is that it may be a situation where Billy is saying, "Hey, you know what? We've had some offensive linemen out. We're not really gelling in the run game. Let's switch it up." So maybe it could be, maybe he's evolving a little bit as a play caller there from the head coach position.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one of the and now I think someone else pointed this out. I was reading or listening about it. And now that you have a pretty solid kicker, it might change the way you call a game. You might be a little more aggressive, maybe wanting to go downfield because you're not as conservative. Like I have this kicker that I can rely on, but maybe.
Okay. Makes a big difference. I can tell you that for sure. Yeah. Excellent. Well, yeah, the Gators get to 5-2 in the season. South Carolina falls to 2-4. Any final thoughts? I know Florida's heading into a bye week. Kind of what you guys think the team takes away into the bye?
Yeah. I know it's a lot of people like it's just Vanderbilt and just South Carolina, and that's true. I get that they're the bottom of the SEC, but looking big picture, we have like 5 games left, and you need to get 6 to be bowl eligible. And of those 5 games, 4 of them are ranked, 2 of them in the top 4. So any win is a good win. Any win, and this is a huge win for us because we needed 2. Now we just need to find 1. Obviously, you think Arkansas is probably your best bet at home because they're the worst of the 5 teams. But you feel a lot better about your team going forward. And we're probably got a good chance of beating Arkansas. Now, what other of the other 4, where can you steal a win here and there, right? So we get a bye before Georgia, but they get a bye as well. I think that game is a little bit more interesting. I still think that they're the 2-time defending national champs. LSU has a great offense, not a great defense. You're fortunate to get an FSU in the swamp. Missouri's a tricky one. Don't know what to make of them. We got to go on the road. But so getting this win was absolutely huge going forward because now there's not as much pressure to get that last win to make the bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, I think any win you're going to be is going to surpass your Vegas win total, right? A lot of people will pick this, 4 wins, 3 wins. So, I mean, what Chris has been saying, you're 2 ahead of schedule now. Can you go out and steal 1 on the road? And you're going to have to, right? So, in order to achieve the goals, I mean, what's that look like? I agree with Chris. I think Arkansas is probably your best bet, but can you go steal a game against LSU or Missouri? And maybe you can. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. The defense is going to have to play a lot better. I'll tell you that much. But, I think it's a game. I think both of those are going to be once maybe looked at as completely unwinnable, and now maybe you're looking at you got a shot.
Yep.
I like it. Yeah. Well said. Okay. Well, if we're ready to move on, I'm not going to spend too much time on Florida State beating Syracuse. If you guys have some thoughts, we can certainly entertain those. But yeah, the Noles take care of business 41-3 at home. And, a lot of good things that come out of this. Coming up to this week, we find out during Wednesday's practice, there was a little bit of some high tension. Norvell had to pull some of the ones, had to get some guys straightened out. Jordan Travis, actually, some of that emotion kind of showed in this game. Not that we were ever in question of struggling with Syracuse, but just to see him get a little fired up about getting some things right. And, we're up 17-3, and everything seems to be going well. We'd stifled Syracuse. They only had 1, maybe 2 meaningful drives the entire game. We actually get a tackle for loss. Jared Verse recovers a fumble, and we have the ball 1st and goal at the 5. don't score any points. First failure in the red zone this year. You're like, okay, well, you're going for it on fourth down. It's not like you were concerned about the outcome of this game. Norvell's trying to maybe push the envelope here. Well, you did it on the next drive, too. You can inside, you try a wildcat formation with Jaheim Bell, you don't get it. So it's 17-3 where it could have been 31-3. Or, any number of scores you could have come up with to make that happen. And so, like, going in and have 17-3, you're like, yeah, we really could be killing this team, but they're not hanging around per se. We know we're better than this. And so that kind of faded away down the stretch. Once you take a huge lead and start putting your secondary guys, nobody seems to remember that. But Jordan Farmer has a good game. He's in the backfield a lot. I already talked about Verse recovering the touchdown. Keon Coleman makes a one-handed catch that made Sports Center and kind of rivals Pearsall's against Charlotte, right? Grabs it one-handed in midair. Probably him getting more targets makes a lot of sense because Johnny Wilson didn't play. But you have 3 running backs who kind of all get involved in the fold. So, I mean, not a whole lot of negatives here. I'm not going to nitpick. The 2 fourth downs you don't convert is really the only thing I can really think about. You did allow a 100-yard rusher with Syracuse, but you stopped anytime they had any kind of momentum. A game where it's been 30 years since the 1993 season, the first national title. So they honor the team at halftime. So you have some legends there, like Charlie Ward is there, Warwick Dunn, Kes McCorvey. So a lot of the coaches. Mark Richt came back, Mickey Andrews, Ann Bowden was there in honor of her husband. So I mean, like, it was a good day. And at Doak, it was really kind of cool to see all that happen, and the Noles took care of business.
Yeah, honestly, Brandon, I don't have much to add. For the just like as usual for all our loyal listeners there, just like I've been saying all year long, calling every game correctly. Wasn't worried for a minute about this game. No, this is probably the first time I've got something right. And honestly, it probably is the first time I got something right. But yeah, the Noles look good, took care of business, and you're right. I imagine that being there was really cool. Kind of seeing the pageantry. It played out on TV pretty well too. Kind of getting, just notating the things that were going on, kind of off the field or kind of for like some special events. So I thought it was pretty fun. Good solid win. Obviously, just building on to the next.
Yeah, I'm very just impressed with their defense. Just the way that they shut them down. I know, obviously, Syracuse is Syracuse, but still holding a team to 3 points for a whole game, still impressive. And it's just continuing to. I'm just impressed with Florida State as a whole, not messing around with these lower teams, and that's what good to great teams do. Is handle your business even when the lights aren't on, per se. Like if it's not a highly ranked team, still going out there, putting up the same effort and everything. So because you had those couple of weeks where you kind of struggled a little bit, but you've responded well at home since then, and doing it on the defensive side of the ball. And again, Keon Coleman is just continuing to impress me as just a playmaker. And he almost returned a punt for a touchdown too, I believe, right?
Yep, sure did.
So, I mean, just what a great find they got in him. But overall, very impressive win for the Noles at home.
Yeah, Keon Coleman is definitely taking us to the next level. And he actually had another punt and return that was really long, too, that was called back because of a penalty. So he had just an all-over guy. And, of course, Norvell has the tradition where player of the game kind of breaks the rock. So that was definitely him. Your young guys get an interception to end the game. Their starters, I mean, maybe had 200 yards before we put in the backups on defense. You keep them out of the end zone. Just struggles continue. I mean, last year we beat Syracuse 38-3. This year 41-3. Just not going well for the Orange right now. They've had some struggles. Their best wide receivers out with injury. Garrett Schrader was quote unquote not 100%, and they had a lot of things that kind of set them back coming into this game. But we knew that they were kind of flash in the pan, right? The first 4 weeks going undefeated, but it was against bad teams, and then lost the last 3 all pretty handily. So, they were kind of limping into their bye week, just trying to get not blown out. It didn't work very well, but that was kind of their goal too. But yeah, special teams were really good. The handful of times we had punt opportunities, we didn't really have to worry about that. Took a field goal, and they missed one. So, yeah, I don't think there's not much else to add to this game. Noles took care of business.
Real quick, Brandon. Go ahead, Chris.
Just one the backup quarterback for Syracuse, Carlos Del Rio Wilson. That name ring a bell, Jared?
It does. It does ring a bell. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. I didn't notice until I was reading these stats here. He's a former Gator. Transferred a couple years ago, I believe. Maybe last year. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. He's the one through the pick, but, I mean, it was
yeah.
garbage time anyway. I didn't know that either.
Okay with. Yeah.
Shout out that. The one question I had, Brandon, was so how do you see that ACC picture shaping up for the Noles here about halfway through?
Great question. So we'll talk about Miami here in a second, but now they have 2 conference losses. You think essentially they're kind of out of the race there. I don't think that Clemson is with their 2 losses, which is kind of weird to think about, but Clemson may run the table the rest of their season. I wouldn't put any money on it, but there is a chance. Louisville loses on the road at Pittsburgh, so that actually probably does Florida State a favor. North Carolina remains undefeated, so now you have those 2 teams. I think it's pretty clear the road is going to be UNC versus Florida State. Even if one or both of them slip up and have a loss somewhere, I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be those 2 teams together. I had to look up all of the crazy ACC tiebreakers this week because it was starting to get really cloudy, right? And I know it's kind of early to do this, but the way that the ACC has it written down, if it comes down to a tie, 2 or 3-way tie, the way they break the tie is common conference opponents record. And because Florida State's schedule right now is pretty weak, then Florida State would have technically been left out of the ACC title game had the conference game been played Friday, if that makes sense. I was like, this is weird. I don't know how this works out. But, you're playing with scenarios in the middle of October, now the picture is already clear just, as of 24 hours after that prediction. So Louisville now has a loss, and I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be UNC versus Florida State in Charlotte, so not far from Tar Heel Stadium. Yeah. Plus, you don't really want to face Drake May in the last game of the season. It's a little intimidating, but we got about 6 more games to kind of figure things out.
And the last thing I'll say is, Noles also a pretty big recruiting weekend there. Don't know if you kind of noticed any of that going on, Brandon, but Charles Lester, the 3rd 5-star defensive back, big time commitment actually from Florida State. He's been taking some visits. I think he visited Florida. There's potential rumors of him maybe visiting Colorado or Alabama, but we'll see how that shakes out. Obviously, he's going to be back in Tallahassee for the Duke game, so that's a pretty big, for those fans who are thinking, well, maybe his commitment's wavering. Obviously good to get him back on campus there if you're an FSU fan. And then the 4-star running back Alvin Henderson, who's out of Alabama. He's actually a 25 recruit, but he was on campus there last weekend. And so pretty good visit for him, something to keep an eye on. Auburn's obviously in the mix there, but, he's going to be a top 100 player there for the next year. So it could be a potential big-time running back there for the Noles moving forward if, that recruitment continues to take shot. Obviously still a year away, but right now is the time, man. Those 25 kids are getting recruited and getting visited right now. Most of those kids are going to be committed by the summer. So, definitely something to keep an eye on.
I like that. Yeah, Florida State is doing a decent job of putting their best foot forward with recruits and the atmosphere. I think every game except North Alabama is sold out the rest of the year. So obviously as you win, the ticket sales go up. But yeah, it's our job to kind of do that because a noon game, you do kind of start off a little bit slow as far as the fans go. Everybody's kind of still waking up and or the sun's in your face the whole game. So it can be hard to get some energy going for that. Somebody actually threw a stat out to me that, God, I forgot, it was in one of the Florida State media, that road teams are 14% more likely to win on the road in conference play if it's a noon game. I was like, that's weird. But if I think back to some of the games, at least in the ACC, that actually pans out to be pretty true. Didn't have to worry about this time, but, we're like, oh, man, that's only good if you're on the road, right? If you're hosting a noon game, you have to be worried.
Yeah. It's a wild stat. Wild stat.
That's kind of wild.
Yep. So, any final thoughts about the Noles winning at home?
Nah, man.
No? Yeah, 12 in a row for us. I mean, a sneaky kind of good team. I will say one thing just with the energy level, we kept in our starters long enough to get 30 points because that's how many we've scored in every game during the streak, right? But it's almost like, if this can make any sense, let me see if I can put it into terms here. It's almost like a lethargic win streak where you're like, Did y'all ever see the movie The Incredibles?
Oh yeah.
All right, so you have the kid riding his tricycle. He's like a neighbor to the family, right? And the dad comes home from work today, and he's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm looking for something amazing, I guess." I don't know. I feel like that kid where we're like, well, we get some amazing plays from Benson, we get some amazing plays from Keon, but we're like, we're not seeing anything amazing from the Knowles right now, and we're just waiting for it, and it's just not there, and we know we can be better.
Do you think they're saving it for the big games?
I mean, I would hope so. Duke would be a good place to put that up, right? Because they're decent this year, and that's a big win. The Miami game, and I mean, playing at the Swamp when we play you guys at the end of the year. I would hope this is what they're saving it for.
Not me, but not good.
Yep. All right, so let's see. UCF is off. I'll start with you, Jared, because I know you love to hate Miami. They lose on the road to North Carolina by 10, but it wasn't really that close.
No, and this is a game that I really didn't expect to be all of that close, just to be honest with you. And that's not a knock on Miami, though I do love to knock on Miami. I just thought that UNC, as we talked about last week, I just thought they were a better team. And I thought Mac Brown's a better coach. And I think that when you watch this game, if you watch this game, that was just proven throughout the 4 quarters that Mac Brown was a better coach than Mario Cristobal. I think we've all seen that Miami does have some talent and some ability kind of there, but when the game came down to it and you had to make, decisions that are going to affect the game, and outside of obviously North Carolina just making some phenomenal plays and being a better team. But, you look at the decisions of Mario Cristobal, I mean, giving North Carolina another shot, with the penalty there. And I just didn't understand that. You have a shot maybe to get them off the field. You're going to give them another shot. Then they're going to turn around and score on you because you give them another down. Like, I just thought that was such a weird decision to be made. And then obviously your coaching staff continues to just make these boneheaded, not even decisions, but just even with the flag, your defensive coordinator's out running around trying to get timeout that he can't even call, can't even, within the rule book legally call, and the referee standing over the ball. Like, what is he doing and why is he doing it? So you completely, there's a flag there. You're going to have to go ahead and, punt and just, it's almost that Miami wants to play on hard mode for no reason whatsoever. Like, let's just make this as hard as possible. Because we're going to try and prove a point, and the point is that if not all things go right, you're not a very good team and you're going to lose. Mm-hmm. And they did, and I expect them to probably continue the trend next week too. So that's what I think.
I think outside the coaching mishaps and the difference in how much better North Carolina is coached, the stats show another shootout, but I think North Carolina had a better overall defense, forcing 2 picks from Van Dyke, and I think they recovered 2 fumbled as well. I think that was a huge difference in the game. Having what's the guy's? Was it Devontae Walker, the receiver?
Oh, Des Walker for UNC.
Yeah. Was he the guy that was questionable whether he was eligible?
Yeah, he was told earlier this year he couldn't play. Then they rescinded that, and he just made Miami pay for it. He just came out on fire.
But on the flip side, Miami, they had George and Restrepo. I can't pronounce it. I never can. They had pretty good games as well. So fun game, but just I think North Carolina's defense and the coaching were definitely the difference which separated them from Miami in this game.
And this is, sorry, Brandon, I don't want to cut you off here, but you mentioned Xavier Restrepo there, and that's something that honestly kind of baffles me. I think he's a decent receiver. I think he's pretty good, right? I think he's going to be able to get numbers, be able to get catches. But name another Miami wide receiver. If you're not a Miami fan, you can't. They throw the ball to him 75% of 85 times a game. He's their only weapon kind of there in the offense. And I'm not saying he is their only weapon. I'm not saying they don't have other talented players. I know they do. I know who's on that roster. But I don't know if it's Tyler Van Dyke issue. I don't know if it's a play calling issue. But there are several instances where Van Dyke's taking the snap, staring at Restrepo, and just waiting to see something happens and then throwing the ball. I mean, he's not even looking at the other part of the field sometimes. And that's really surprising to me. A guy that got off to a hot start and kind of looked like he was playing, some high-level football. I just think I don't know if he's regressed. I don't know if their opponents have stepped up and gotten better. But, he's looking down receivers. And by receivers, I mean receiver. And that seems to be – I don't know if he's in his head and that's the only place he's comfortable going. But I don't know. I mean, that's just it's interesting for somebody who's watched all the Miami games that's not a Miami fan, because in the first 3 weeks, I don't feel like this team looked like that, and looked like what we've seen, on the field the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, Miami had a chance to really pounce and get a big lead in the first half because Drake May just was getting a little bit off the first 2 quarters. I mean, then Miami has the mistakes you guys talked about already. They fumbled the ball going into the end zone, which cost them a touchdown there. So that's a possession swing the other way. And Miami, despite their fact they led 17-14 at one point, they just let it slip away, and just UNC just went rolling, and they took advantage of every opportunity Miami gave them. So they scored some touchdowns a little bit, too late, and that made the score look a little bit better. Otherwise, UNC wins this game by 17, 20 points.
And I don't know. The other thing I'll say is Kitchens and Williams got a lot of preseason hype from a safety duo there, and that is not a great safety tandem. I think Williams is more comfortable, obviously, playing in the box. I don't think he's a very fluid guy, and then Kitchens just continues to make some crazy mistakes in coverage. So I think there's a lot of questions there to answer, and I'm not trying to bag on Miami, even though I am. I'm not trying to. I am bagging on them, but I'm not I'm not being so nitpicky. These are just, general observations. If it was sport, I would be saying the same thing. So I mean, I just think that that they have a lot of questions to answer in terms of is anyone going to flash on the defensive line outside of Ruben Bain, who's a true freshman, who did flash. Ruben Bain looked good as a true freshman, but what's going on with Leonard Taylor? What's going on with the interior? Obviously at safety, obviously at cornerback. A lot of questions there. So where's your go-to if you're a Miami fan, or if you're on that, where are you looking to turn this thing around? Is it benching Tyler Van Dyke? That seems crazy.
Right.
I think the Emory experience has already been experienced, and it's not good. So, what's the solution there? You guys have any thoughts on that?
You may need to kind of get some younger guys in on running back. I mean, if you're having, now I'm not meaning to joke on it, but if you're having trouble with fumbles like this is happening again, then you may need to make a change there. Or you're right, not Restrepo. I mean, that's fine if you want to target him 14 times a game, but when you stare him down and you get it picked off, what is this, 5 times now in the last 2 games? You got to reevaluate the offensive strategy there.
Yeah, they got to figure it out quick, because if you just take a peek at the rest of their schedule, it's not going to get easier. They got Clemson is kind of tough. Florida State, Louisville, they have to go on the road at Boston College. That can be kind of potentially crazy. So they got to figure it out quick, because time's running out, and that schedule is not looking better.
Yeah, and also just going back to their win over Texas A&M, we now see that A&M has their 3rd loss of the season. That win's not holding up like we thought. So when they score 50 against the Aggies, now you look back on it, a month later, like, that was not a great team after all. And so I think we put a little too much faith in them maybe from that point.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, and again, shame on us for jumping on that train, man. That's never forgive myself for jumping on that train.
That's all right. Miami's bound to get a home win in the conference play eventually. So,
yeah. By the way, that's a team that was picked to win 10 games, right, and play for the ACC title. So I think that's kind of over with at this point.
Yeah.
It's crazy how this can all switch in 2 weeks. The narrative, it really is.
Love college football.
All right. Let's see. That's all that UCF is off, so we can move on past that. Why don't we start looking forward?
Yeah.
Well, the Gators face BYE. That's Chris's joke. You're welcome.
Yep.
Florida State playing Duke at home. I'm going to let you get you guys in on this. A lot of this is going to depend on who starts for Duke, but just a better team than we thought starting the year. Give me your thoughts. The Duke Blue Devils travel to Tallahassee.
I'm really excited for this game. Sorry to jump in there, because I'm really excited for this game. I think this could be a really fun and entertaining sort of matchup. I think that obviously I'm out of the picking business, but I do think that this is going to be a very entertaining and hard-fought competitive game. I think Duke's going to be able to keep it close there in the first half and maybe make it a game into the third quarter. I think that that's a team that's overachieved and obviously facing a huge test in the Noles, who have been really solid, as we've all talked about. You could look at the Boston College game, but that's looking more like an anomaly, right? As the season goes on. So you had you can't even call it a slip up, but you had sort of a stumble that you were able to come out with a win with, and then since then just continue to progress. So I'm really looking forward to what I think could be a potentially challenging matchup for the Noles. Are they going to come in and handle business like we've seen? Or is Duke going to be able to sort of kind of throw a wrench in it early and make it a close game? Either way, I think we're in for a pretty competitive football game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same thing. I think Duke will come out and give Florida State a lot to handle. I think the fact that it's at Florida State, it's under the lights. I mean, I don't know if Duke can hang with them for 4 quarters.
Right.
That's the only thing. A solid half, maybe 3 quarters, but that's a lot to ask to go to Tallahassee to play a team that is got a lot of firepower, a lot of good momentum going on, who's handling their business for 4 quarters. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's got too many weapons. Do you know that, Brandon, do you happen to know the status on Wilson? Would he come back? I don't know if that really matters, honestly, but just out of curiosity, what's his status?
We haven't heard nothing. I've been checking this pretty regularly because this is going to impact the game plan, right? And that's why a prediction is going to be really, really tough. I do know this. When Duke played their quarterback, Belen, against NC State, I think I'm getting that right. Here are his passing stats. Ready for this? 4 of 12, 2 touchdowns. 107 yards passing.
That'll work.
That's nuts, considering 50% of my passes are in the end zone. That's kind of cool. They rushed for 194 yards total. The quarterback kind of gets 28 by himself. But the passing, we already talked about, that's pretty low. So they're all about controlling the clock, controlling possession, and low scoring. And I think if Duke takes that same approach and this quarterback starts, then you would probably see a game where Florida State may be limited on possessions and will struggle to get that 30-point mark, just to be honest. If I were to compare it apples to apples, it may look a little bit like us playing Clemson at the end of September, where points were hard to come by. You have to be very efficient with your possessions. You're going to have to cash in on all but 1 or 2 of them to keep this a game. But if Florida State continues to be physical, this shouldn't be too much of a concern. And I think you're right, Chris, that the fourth quarter is where it would show the most. Where I do see some areas of concern is and everybody can say, the offensive line has got troubles, but Robert Scott came in, and he's been struggling all year to get healthy. We put him in for a couple series against Syracuse. That was the only time in the game where Jordan Travis was pressured and got hurt. So right before halftime, we're like, okay, whoops, that was a bad idea. Let's scratch that and go back to the other guys. We're just trying to get him acclimated, get him back in the game. Johnny Wilson, will he be back? That's also a playmaker that you would like to have on your side when he's 6'7", and he was statistically like your leading receiver as far as yards go. Coleman just had more touchdowns, so that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I guess the best indicator, Clemson, when they played Duke, that was pretty good show of what Duke can do if things are going their way, and they capitalize on mistakes. Clemson just made so many errors in that game. Mm-hmm. In the Notre Dame game, when Duke held him down, it was really close to the last possession. It was a good indicator, but keep in mind both of those games that I saw kind of low scoring. Let's kind of keep the ball away from their high-powered offense, and that's probably the way they keep this game close for a long time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Duke's the matchup between Duke's defense and FSU's offense, and yeah, can they keep it low scoring? Because I think if Duke wants to win, they want it low scoring. If it's a low scoring game, it probably favors Duke. I'm pretty sure Florida State wants to maybe get some up tempo and just go, and just put on the points and don't even make it a contest.
31-20. Jordan Travis makes 2 big plays at the end of the third to pull away. But until then, it's going to be like a field goal type game. But then Jordan Travis is going to pull through, make 2 big plays at the end of the third, double-digit win for the Noles.
I like that.
I liked it a lot too.
You heard it here
first. And I think for the
second.
casual viewer is going to be frustrated by this game, and the average Nole fan is going to be like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "This is the way Duke plays. They're a good team. They're going to mess around. They're going to stretch it out. They're going to take advantage, and this is the way that they kind of get to you and get in your head." So that's just the way we're going to have to be used to. It's not going to bother us because you heard it here first, 31-20. Jared Collar right there. We already know how the game's going to go. Everyone else is going to be a totally different Florida State team, and you may not get to 30 this game, and that may not matter. You may still have enough with 24-27 to get it done.
I like that a lot. Just to be different, I'll say 30-20.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take $1.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. I got to let Jared go first on this one because this is your area of expertise. UCF travels to Oklahoma.
Man, this is a game that before the season, I just hyped up the last matchup, but I'm going to hype up this matchup a little bit too. Before the year, this is kind of a game I circled because I was just so familiar with the Oklahoma program. And then obviously having watched UCF kind of over the past, several years kind of come on. So this is a game I was really interested in. But as I've watched Oklahoma this game, I just don't see how this thing is even close. I think this is a game where if you're a UCF fan, can you hold them under 50? And I don't think that that's like a crazy thing to say. And I'm not trying to like bag on UCF here. I just think Oklahoma's like that good, legitimately good. After that Texas win, they caught a lot of validation for it. And so far what we've seen is they started off the season hot and they continue to build. And they continue to kind of achieve. So Dylan Gabriel kind of facing his old team, and this is a game that I think is going to be really kind of fun to watch there because Gabriel's having a phenomenal year. I don't know if you guys have like tuned in to what he's doing, but he's thrown for like 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 2 picks so far. So that offense he's in command, and I don't want to keep like glowing over what they're able to do there at Oklahoma, but they have a really deep receiving core. They're led by Andrew Anthony. He has the most yards, but he's not their most dynamic playmaker even. So while he's got the most yards, I mean, they have so many guys there who are doing a good job for him. And then the other part of it is their defense is taking away the ball a lot and at a high clip. They've forced, I think, something like 9 interceptions so far on the year, maybe more after the Texas game. I'll have to look at that. Wow. But they're forcing turnovers at a high rate. Tyree Walker's really running the ball really well for him, and he's a pretty big guy. He's like 200 pounds. So I think the Knights are going to have their hands full here. And then obviously I'm assuming John Rice Plumlee's not back yet still. So I think this is going to be a bit of a rough weekend coming up for the Knights. But you never know, man. This has been like a 2007 season, and any given Saturday. So I could be way wrong, but yeah, the Sooners is who I'm rolling with, and I think it's going to be pretty big.
Well, one thing that I have seen, Oklahoma and Texas, 2 things. Whatever, we said this before, going into that game, the Oklahoma-Texas game, whoever you think is going to lose is probably going to win. And that happened. And also, whoever wins that game, expect them to lay an egg shortly after.
Yeah.
And this has reading all over. Like, this could be the game where they just lay an egg. I don't know if UCF can really do much for the whole game, but I would not be surprised if they make it interesting in the first quarter, maybe even up to halftime. But yeah, Oklahoma's got too much going for them offensively and defensively for UCF to really pull this game out. But I would not be surprised if it's closer than it should be, because UCF has. I mean, they're both coming off buys. UCF they're trying to just struggle to figure out something, and I would expect them to tweak things to maybe surprise Oklahoma. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a noon kickoff. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma came out slow as well. But as far as the whole game goes now, I would say Oklahoma pulls away pretty big in the second half.
Yeah, UCF has not proven to me they can stop the run, and so even if Oklahoma's just okay at that, they're going to pretty much have their way on the ground unless something drastic has changed in the last week. Does John Rice Plumlee return? Does that even make a difference? I mean, I think it may actually challenge OU's defense into some different schemes where they have to defend the outside a little bit more. Can they stop the rushing attack? Probably, because it's pretty obvious that UCF's about 20 pounds too skinny at every position they need to be bulked up at. And I just, to me, this reminds me of back in 2010, Jimbo took over at Florida State. It was his first season. Florida State travels to Oklahoma. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to this game. This is the first road game. We'll see if we can get it done. We got embarrassed. I mean, it was you blink an eye, it was like 34-7, in like the second, and we lost 47-17. Didn't even belong in the same field with these guys, and I have a feeling a lot of this for UCF is going to look the same. Obviously, I'm hoping wrong because this is my second favorite team, and I want the guys to be competitive, get their first conference win, but I just don't think it's here.
A couple of corrections there. Oklahoma has 12 interceptions on the year so far, so obviously huge. And then if you're a fan of the game or you're a fan of ball and you watch this game, I want you to pay attention to number 28, the linebacker for Oklahoma, Danny Stutzman. That might be the best linebacker in the country that no one's talking about. I've paid a lot of attention to him, and I've watched a lot of Oklahoma games. He is phenomenal. Not the best athlete in the world, but definitely not the worst. Very athletic and just really plays really smart, fills a lot of gaps, makes a lot of huge plays. One of the best one-on-one tacklers so far that I've seen with all the football that we've talked about and watched this year. So again, this isn't me like being an OU fan. This is me having watched 5-6 weeks of football closely and saying like, man, this team is doing something special. Mm-hmm. So, but again, like Chris said, this could be the game where Gus Malzahn just has it up his sleeve and there's that magic, and maybe Oklahoma comes out lazy and, like Chris said, lays an egg, direct quote. But I don't see it. I think we're looking at like a 41-17 game.
And to further y'all's point, if something crazy is going to happen, here's where it'll lie. As I told you guys earlier, I went to the UCF Fan Day in early August, right? I always ask every player every year, what's the one team you're looking forward to playing the most? And I got just a handful of like, I transferred from Kent State. So like that was one guy. A couple of guys like, Kansas State, they won the Big 12. But by far, 85% of the guys all said Oklahoma. And you're playing against Dylan Gabriel, who was a UCF Knight himself just a couple of years ago. He gets hurt against Louisville, goes down in September, and instead of coming back when he's healthy, he just kind of delays his return, and then he just finally just says, I'm gone. And left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. He was supposed to be the successor to Mackenzie Milton. He was the second coming of whoever, who's he, what's it. He was going to be, one of those guys that, maybe retire his number one day. And all of a sudden he just jets, and he says, well, maybe I'll go to UCLA. Psych, I'm going to go to Oklahoma instead. And some of these players will play with this guy. And so I don't know how that factors into this. I mean, most of these guys probably don't remember him or don't know who he is. But for the few that do, they're going to be hyping up the rest of them and say, hey, let me let you know who Dylan Gabriel is and what he did to us. And that could be the X factor.
As a fan of that program, Brandon, what's the temperature there on Dylan Gabriel? Like, when he transferred, was that kind of like a shot? When he transferred, was that kind of taken personal? Kind of by some of that fan base?
Yeah, oddly enough, like of all the guys that left, this is the one guy everyone hated for doing it. Like Castellanos goes to Boston College, no one knows or cares. They had another Mikey Keene, he transfers to Fresno State. They're pretty good, no one cares. It was Dylan. Like he came in here right when NIL was brand new. Here's my socks. Here's my brand. Come buy some jerseys. I'm all about UCF. And then a month later, tune completely changes. And he says, I'm just going to leave.
Should be some interesting storylines from Saturday.
Yeah. I didn't realize there was so much hate towards him.
Yeah.
From UCF fans.
And they were like UCF fans are like when Oklahoma played Florida State in Orlando in the Cheez-It Bowl. They're like, I'm going to go there just to boo Dylan Gabriel. I'm like, that's a little childish, but I kind of like it. It's kind of still funny.
I'm here for it. I went to an Oklahoma game once to boo Tennessee. I went to there, took a free ticket to go to Norman just so I could cheer against Tennessee. So I get it.
My wife, she was all about going to the UCF FAU game just to boo Lane Kiffin at the time.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I get it.
So if you do see like. Keep an eye out. So Rock'em Socks, it's a brand. You can probably look them up. They have their own website and stuff. But there were a couple UCF guys that got on board with them. He had some Rock'em Socks that had his face on them, and they were UCF. So there were some fans talking, you know what, I'm going to take these and throw them on the field, or I'm going to burn them. And so if you see some socks laying up on the field, that's what's up.
That's amazing.
Good to know.
Man, what a sport!
I think it's all for naught and it won't matter. But hey, if something crazy does happen, that's the reason why they just got fired up over that.
That's incredible. And I'm looking forward to the game, man. I'm looking forward to the game. I hope UCF does keep it close. Obviously I've call it a huge blowout. But I do hope it's a game where UCF can be competitive in there and kind of show some fight. I would love to see that, and show that, hey, we've had a rough run here so far in the Big 12, but we're not backing down, we're not giving up, and we're still here. So yeah, that would be great.
Agreed. Okay. Man, well, it's gonna be a very interesting week. There's some big name teams playing, and the Gators get some time to rest up. So I'm sure you guys. Thanks for the recruiting update, Jared. By the way, I would think that the Gators take some time. What do you think the Gators do in their bye week? Do we spend some extra time hitting the books and studying? Do we spend more time in the gym? Do we kind of just take some breaks and time off? What do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be a huge weekend for the coaching staff. A lot of people around the state to see that are still undecided. Like Xavier Mincy, who's a 4-star safety cornerback down here, kind of close to me, out here in Southwest Florida. He's also a teammate of LJ McCray, who's announcing next weekend on the 21st, I believe. Maybe Saturday the 21st. No, Saturday the 20th. I think it's the day of the Georgia game. So, I'll check that. I'll fact check that. But obviously, those are two teammates. LJ McCray is now a 5-star defensive lineman. Xavier Mincy is a 4-star DB. So both of those guys are on the board. Mincy is down to Florida State, Florida, and Miami. McCray is down to Georgia, Florida State, and Florida. A lot of people think that's a Georgia-Florida battle going in, but McCray was recently on his official visit to Florida State. So that's something to keep an eye on there. Obviously, some other huge talented. Jordan Seaton out of IMG Academy. We talked about him before. 5-star offensive tackle. So I'm sure that they'll be sending a slew of coaches to go hang out with him at his game and check that out. So some big pieces left on the board for all in-state schools. And this is going to be the future right here. So can you go out and, not only win a game on Saturday, but can you go and recruit these kids on Friday and Monday and Tuesday so you can win those games on Saturday? So big weekend.
Okay. I actually have two questions about recruiting, if you may. The first one is, this first story that I saw may have just been nothing but clickbait, but could you clarify? Did I understand correctly, like no more photo shoots and unofficial visits? Is that correct?
That is correct. That's kind of a big thing that we're kind of pushing, and it caught a little people by surprise, but I actually kind of get it. And honestly, it's one of those things that's probably kind of a move motivated by the coaches or, even some of those staffers, because you think about all the work that goes into those photo shoots. I don't know if you guys have follow on Twitter or see these shoots on Instagram, but these are professional shoots. I mean, they bring in props, they got all kinds of stuff. So it's not just putting on the uniform and taking a picture in front of a white background. I mean, there's photo edits that go into it and everything like that. So I think it's going to be kind of a move where the coaching staff is like, hey, we're spending a lot of money on people who will never suit up.
Okay.
For our program. And not only that, but time, right? So, and the other part of it is if you're an unofficial visit, you're supposed to be limited contact anyways. So if you're going in a full photo shoot and all that stuff, where are you drawing those lines? So It's kind of part of that too. I think has a lot to do with it. So yeah, definitely a big change in the recruiting world.
Interesting. Okay. And then one quick question, and then we do have to double back to Miami versus Clemson next week. Forgot about that preview. Thank you, Chris. Could you help clarify for me, Jared? Help me explain to other fans that a win-loss record isn't all that a recruit looks at, because I think that UCF is going to start to get real nervous with all of these losses coming and know that maybe in November is the first time you get a Big 12 win. I know it does matter, but it's just not as important as we may think it may be. No.
So at the end of the day, recruiters recruit. And that's the saying, and that's time tested, and that is tried and true. Recruiters recruit. It doesn't matter if you're 1-4, 1-8. Doesn't matter if you got an undefeated season. Now, undefeated season and wins help. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, man, your coach is selling a vision for the future, right? So you don't play. These high school kids do not play on these college teams, right? They may be committed, you may be uncommitted, you may be looking around, but you're not 1-4. You're not 1-4 playing for the Knights or 0-whatever playing for, Arizona State, even though they're not 0-whatever. But I'm just saying you're not part of that program. And so the vision that you're buying into and the vision you're selling is what you do when you get on campus. So those win-loss records really won't affect it. You may have one or two guys who may defect for whatever reason, and they may say it's a win-loss record, but in the world of 2023, it all comes down to NIL. So it may be taking can I start as the seasons develop, maybe somebody stepped up that I wasn't expecting to, right? Maybe there's a true freshman on a team that is taking that spot and he's going to be there for 3 more years. So maybe I need to decommit and look around because I'm not going to be able to play right away. That some of that's happened. So what you're looking at is playing time, NIL opportunities, and, buying into that staff and coaching. So yeah, absolutely. I would not really worry about that win-loss record too much for your incoming class. It's just at this point it's so irrelevant in what you're doing. If you get a head coach fired, okay, maybe then all of a sudden you're going to lose some guys. But right now, if you got a stable person at the top and you got the staff in place, you're probably going to hold on to your commits come early signing day.
Okay, well said, man. Thank you. And then thank you, Chris, for the reminder. Miami plays Clemson. I mean, I almost forgot about this one. Shame on me. But I guess I'll start with you, Chris. What do you anticipate happens in this one, and how does the results from the last 2 weeks affect the Hurricanes going in?
This is a game where it's like, as Jared says, Clemson's not good at football. And Miami's looking like they're not good at football either. So I'm interested to see, and it's at Miami, which doesn't really matter at all. So I don't know what to make of this. I would assume I would think Miami gets it together with this game, because I mean, just the national perception of your team is that you are losing control of the program. If you're Cristobal, just the way you lose those last 2 games, and UNC is a good team, but Georgia Tech's not. So I would think Miami would be in desperation mode right here. Clemson probably is too, honestly, but at least Miami can score if they want to. They have the potential to. So I would expect Miami to actually bounce back and get a victory over Clemson. Clemson has got a good defense, but I think the dynasty might be over for them. And I think out of desperation, I would go Miami and maybe a shootout potentially. So yeah, I see the Hurricanes bounce back in this game.
I agree and disagree, Chris. I think the dynasty is over. I think you called it straight up. I disagree in that I have no faith in Mario Cristobal to outcoach Dabo Swinney. I think Swinney's overhyped. I think he's overrated as a coach. Like you said, I don't think they're very good at football, but I think they're good enough to beat Miami. So maybe Miami, maybe it is a shootout, but maybe they do pull a close one. So I'll probably defer to pretty much everything you said right there, Chris, except for the win-loss.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I could easily see Clemson win, but it's hard for me to. I guess it's not hard for me to fathom. It'd be real. Miami needs this. I think that's what I'm getting at. Miami needs it more than Clemson does. Cristobal needs it, and I would imagine they would respond that way. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely fumble this one too.
No, and that's a great point you make. When teams are against the wall, their backs against the wall, we've seen it so far this season, even with our own team, right? So, that's a good point.
We'll see.
What's crazy, and I'm going to try and put a finger on it, but I'm really having trouble doing so. I don't think there's any question in my mind that Clemson wins this game. I mean, you could say, oh, they're coming off a bye week. I'm like, they also had 9 months to get ready for Duke, and they just totally lost that game, just in every aspect of that game. So you're like, well, maybe they were looking ahead after Wake Forest. Well, you only beat Wake Forest 17-12, and that's not a good sign either. You put up 31 against Syracuse. We saw what Florida State did to them. They're not a very good team either. The good teams that Clemson's played so far, they haven't played well. And everything about me should agree and say, you know what, Miami is going to win this game. But I really think Clemson wins pretty comfortably. I couldn't tell you how. It's going to be Shipley related, I'm sure. I'm sure they take care of special teams. I'm sure Miami makes some kind of mistake here and there, but I'm going to take the Tigers here. I think maybe it's the coaching, like you were saying, Jared. That's the reason why I have the faith. But yeah,
it's going to be a fun pillow fight. I tell you that.
Chris, is this a game where Miami plays a road game at home?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, the fan base doesn't really show out even when they're winning. So I doubt they're going to show out even more now that they're losing. So yeah, it's like a neutral site game basically.
Yeah.
That's
That's what we're
awesome.
looking at.
That's awesome.
They have road games and neutral site games.
Oh my gosh.
Excellent. Well, before we start to wrap up, any final thoughts on these games or anything we talked about, or anything that's looking ahead? Any maybe national perception games that caught your eye this weekend, or anything conference wise?
I said it off air, but it happened to me again. I was watching a football game and I was convinced it was over, so I go to sleep at halftime. Colorado is up 29-0, and I'm like, oh, Dion, Primetime's got this. I can go to bed. And sure enough, I was wrong again. They got beat.
Yeah, that was an insane comeback. 29 points, unbelievable. The game I would talk about is that Washington-Oregon game, man. That was the best football I think I've seen played this season. That was just such a fun game to watch. So, man, such a great year, honestly, for college football. But yeah, it's every week somebody's going to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. It's been interesting to see like the top teams in my perspective. Like, okay, Georgia, how good are you? Penn State, how good are you? Michigan, Ohio State, etc. And you know, I look for a team to keep rising above the rest. You don't quite see it yet, but it's just really odd to me that just for Georgia, your best player is a tight end, and now he's hurt. That blows me away. That I barely even know your quarterback, and I know your head coach, and that's about it. The fact that you can stay number one like that, and so I hope you guys do teach them a lesson a little bit and humble them down, not humiliate, and kind of bring them back to earth. That's just my thought on what I hope happens next week. Just to be truthful.
Now, and a quick special shout out, Brandon. I have shout out Brooke up for homecoming royalty there at UCF. So if you're an avid listener or you know anything about it, or maybe you're a UCF student, man, definitely check that out. Go in, cash in whatever voting, whatever thing you got to do. Make sure you're supporting her in that endeavor. You know, it's a person that everything I know about that girl, right? She bleeds black and gold. Like she loves the university. Mm-hmm. She loves the team. And probably knows more about that program than any of us will ever combined know. So definitely want to say, you know, it's such an honor there. And all of us at the Florida Focus podcast are just absolutely ecstatic for that opportunity and to continue to watch her win.
Yeah, she is the definition of fanatic.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are fans. She's a fanatic for that school, that team. So, yeah. If you're able to vote for her.
Yeah, and sure. That's what this sport's about, right? I mean, those are the fans those are the type of fans that we love, we know and love, and we want to see supported and validated in that. So absolutely, I agree, Chris, 100%.
Yeah, and if you see her biography, I mean, she has like 3 jobs at the University of Central Florida. She is going into kinesiology, which is related to athletes and helping them recovery from injuries and well-being. So you're right. Couldn't pick a better person to be on court. And let me see if I can work some contacts and actually have her come on the show.
Pull some strings.
We want.
Yeah, let's see if I can have her. She's very busy, from what I understand, because she's. I mean, this is a long campaign process, so I'll see what I can do. But
if you can get her on a review of the OU game, that would be awesome.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me make some calls this week. See what happens.
Okay. All right.
I'll shake some bushes.
There you go.
Good. Love it.
Yeah, thanks for that shout out. Any other thoughts or any other perceptions or any other comments before we start to wrap up?
No, I'm good.
All right. If yeah, go ahead.
The only thing I'll say is, you know, we're already almost halfway through the season, and I hate that it's moving this fast. So, you know, it's been an honor hanging out with you guys every week, and I'm looking forward to some good football here down the stretch.
Yeah, same.
Hey, man, I got the feels right then. Good job, man. Thanks, bud. If the fans want to reach out to us with some feedback too, Chris, how can they do that?
Just head on down to FloridaFocusPodcast.com.
You know it. Okay, well, yes. As we head toward the second half of the season, thank you guys for being great sports and co-hosts on the show. This is Brandon saying, "Go Noles."
This is Chris
and Jared.
Go Gators.